Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Wisdom Work with Christa and Christy. I'm Christy McCaffrey, and I am here with my co-host, Krista Manti. Hey,
Hi, everyone.
Krista.
Hi, Chris.
Hey. So, it's funny. I feel like I say that every single time we come on. Hey. But I'm excited to see you, and I'm excited to talk about the topic that we have for you today. So today we're going to dive into modern motherhood. And
Mm,
we're going to talk about all the things associated with our roles as mothers today in 2022.
mhm.
It's a lot to dissect, I guess you could say. There's a lot of things that we want to talk about here, and we're just eager to give everyone a chance to kind of open up your perspective a little bit of what it means to be a mother today, right? And maybe just analyze or evaluate the ways that we've been taught to see motherhood, and then also give yourself the grace and space to come to a better understanding of what motherhood means to you today, and how do you want to define yourself as a mother, and what does it mean to you um, to encompass everything that is motherhood. So,
Mm.
Chris, let's get into it. Tell us, your take on this topic, and maybe we can talk a little bit about like the shoulds and the supposed tos, and kind of
Mhm.
start with what we've inherited, the views we've inherited of motherhood, and maybe the inner battles that we have because of that. And then
Mhm.
we can kind of move into, but like, what is it? What does it mean for us? And where do we go from here to create our own definition of motherhood?
Oh boy. This is such a good topic. I absolutely love talking about this, and it's something I talk a lot about with my clients. So, when I became a mom, I, like all mothers, I imagine, wanted to do the best that I could. Like, I really wanted to be successful. I wanted to be a good mom. I wanted to do all of the right things. But there's no rule book, as we know. And my intuition, I was just starting to listen inward, and it's really hard to do when you're flooded with things externally that are telling you, no, 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 do it this way. No, 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 do it this way. And it's both ends of the spectrum. And people that you love and trust and that have you've had in your life are saying one thing, but you don't feel like that's resonating anymore. And all the feelings that come with that, not to mention sleep deprivation, oozing from every orifice of your body, healing from a traumatic birth or whatever. I mean, I believe all births are traumatic because it's meant to be that way. It's initiation into a different role of your life. So there's so much I could talk about around motherhood, and what I really want us to discuss and plant seeds today is to become aware, and this could be triggering for some, so bear with us, or as one of my teachers say, put it in the fuck it bucket. If it doesn't resonate and if you don't want to, if you're not ready to hear this right now, then just chuck it in the fuck it bucket. So
Love that.
um,
I love that.
it's so good. Yes, Sabrina Lynch, she talks about that. So what I want to talk about is these unspoken expectations that we were born into motherhood with, that we may or may not have been agreeing to. And we don't know what they are until we do some examination internally, because I can guarantee you, you are living from programs that have been set and made from like your great grandmother. And it just hasn't been examined yet in modern day. So I think as women, and I talk to a lot of women about this via my motherhood support groups and clients and all these things, and we feel this like trapped feeling. And then the resentment builds and the mom rage builds, and we don't get enough self-care time and we don't have time for ourselves. And that's our choice. Sorry, ladies, but it is. We make those decisions. We say we can't because we have to do this. And we don't have to do that. We get to choose and we get to be happy. So this, I mean, there's just so much we could go into right now, but I want to keep it somewhat simple and just say, I'll give you an example from my own life. So when Damon was little, sleep was a big thing for us. He didn't sleep for a long time. And I also want to preface this conversation with, we know everyone loves their kids. It's okay to love your kids with all of your being and still want more and still want things to be different. So I just want to say that and put that out there, because this is not a matter of we don't love our family, we don't love our situation that we're in, we don't love, our partners or our kids. It's just a matter of freeing ourselves to be our best and highest form on the planet, because when we do that, that will enhance the lives of everyone around us. So that's kind of the seed that I want to plant today. But as a specific example, when Damon was little, sleep was a big issue and we were not sleeping. John Paul and I were both so exhausted and sleep deprived. And I just could not do the cry it out thing. And I just was really at a loss, because I knew there's this solution that I thought everybody was doing, and like sleep consultants are out there and this and that. And Damon just wouldn't sleep anywhere except on me. And part of me loved the cuddles, part of me loved that snuggling in the infant stage, and part of me loved that my body was the only thing that could soothe him. But at the same time, I was so exhausted and so drained, and it was not serving people around me. Um, and I went with it. I just kept it going. And eventually he did sleep 3 years later, but it was just this internal battle of like, well, the books say this, and what I'm doing is another thing. And what I've learned, and now looking back, is that I had all these expectations that Damon never knew, and he didn't read any of the books. So when we're in this motherhood journey, and when we're in this kind of rough journey of like push pull, forcing, that's you're not there's you, what I want to say is that there are so many more opportunities and so many more perspectives to get to an end result than what we may think. It's not as binary as one would have learned. So with that, Chris, talk to me about your experiences around releasing expectations, or when you see your kids, or when you're in a pinch point, like what happens internally to you, and how do you work through that?
Yeah, well, I love that we're talking about intuition right off the bat, because that
Yeah.
has become a major source of support for me as a mom, is leaning heavily on my own intuition. And that I have felt intuitive guidance for as long as I can remember. So that has always been there. But with this conditioning of the world around us, even though I knew intuitively what I wanted to do, I still came really hard up against what I thought I was supposed to do. Right. And that
Mm-hmm.
is forever the battle in so many areas of our lives, right? And not just in motherhood. But for me, coming into motherhood, that was so heavy, like you said in the beginning, of just all the books that were out there, or the advice that other people would give you, or the moms that did it before you that would tell you, this is how it should be. This is how you're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to do it. Um, and it's really hard to even hear your own intuitive voice, let alone follow it, when you feel so bombarded by what the world around you is telling you you're supposed to do. So I would say, especially to new moms, if you're feeling that, like, you're not alone. I think every single mother on the planet, when they come into motherhood, whether you gave birth to that child yourself or not, being a mom, you are forced through this process of trying to figure out, what is the world around me telling me I should do, and what do I intuitively feel like I should do, right? So for me, it did take some time to sort that out, but eventually I just made the decision, like, is not working for me to take stock of everyone else's opinions, or to beat myself up for doing things differently than somebody else's book told them they should. Um, and I just decided, like, I am going to follow my gut in all things motherhood. And I still hold very firmly to that to this day. My kids are 8, 7, and 4. And I still use my intuition as my greatest source of inspiration and guidance when it comes to being a mom. But what I would say, something that has been very challenging for me too, in terms of the supposed tos and the shoulds, is my career. And for those who don't know, I was a hairstylist for many years. Basically, from the time I was in high school, I was in the hair industry. and all the way through until I had my daughter, who's my second child, is when I decided to leave the hair industry altogether because I was transitioning into a nonprofit that I had started. So it's kind of a complete career shift. And at that time, I had my son, who was 18 months old, and then a brand new baby girl. And I mean, talk about the shoulds and supposed tos and all the feelings. Like one half of me was saying, you are supposed to be here with your kids. That's your role, is to be 100% all in on being a mom. But then I had this passion and this drive to make an impact and to do big things with the nonprofit work that I was in. And I felt really conflicted with that for a long time. And I'd say I still battle it now, but I've learned to work through it. And it's the shoulds and supposed tos that are so challenging because we've been heavily steeped in what generations before us did, and then we bring those expectations onto ourselves, but we're living in a completely different world now,
Mhm.
so to put the expectation on myself that, because for instance, my own mom was a stay-at-home mom, right? And it was incredible. It was a great experience, and I know how blessed I was to have that. But she didn't have the same, well, she wasn't living in the same world of where now most families are two-income families, right? And also women have come into their own, passion and fire for doing things in the world outside their home. And I happen to be one of those women. And that was something I
Mhm.
had to really like wrestle with was, do I completely shut this side of myself off just to completely focus on my kids? And the route that I chose was to try and do both, and try and find some sort of balance in them both. And I will say that that is one of our greatest challenges as mothers, is to create balance, not to just create balance, but to really prioritize balance for yourself, right? So I think we've been told, or the example has been given to us as women and as mothers, is that you are supposed to give everything to your children and everyone else in your family and your life, and then you take care of yourself. But the issue with that is we have nothing left to give when we do that. And so, where you might feel like you're doing what's right and good, how are you feeling yourself as a result of that, is something that we have to take an honest look at. And so to me, I have tried really hard to focus on the fact, once I did take stock of that and realize, uh, okay, no, it doesn't feel good to me. I feel completely exhausted, depleted, and like these creative outlets that I need for the work that I do are so necessary to the balance of my home and the balance of my relationships with my children and my husband. As you were saying, like if we are not giving ourselves those outlets, then resentment creeps in and you're resenting everybody in your life, for the
Mhm.
fact that you can't do what you want to do to feel whole yourself, and it's
Mhm.
not selfish. It is not selfish to desire that for yourself. And it's not selfish to try and create that for yourself, to create that balance. It's healthy. And
Mhm.
just as we always talk about that pouring back into yourself and that you can't pour from an empty cup, that really applies heavily to this type of conversation. If you are not giving yourself what you need as a whole person, and you're only focusing on this one aspect of your life, you're going to feel depleted, you're going to feel exhausted, you're going to feel resentful, you're going to feel all these, like this chain reaction of negative feelings, because you're prioritizing or leaning too heavily on just one aspect of what's really important to you in your life. And again, like Krista said, this is not in any way a conversation about us saying like, you know, well, no, it's more so affirming the fact that you're not a bad mom, or you are not being a great mom by focusing on these other things too, and not only solely focusing on being a mom. And I'll say, just to kind of wrap up this part of the conversation, that for me, what I've come to understand is that the more that I cr- strike that balance, and the more opportunities that I am able to, do these creative projects, or focus on something that's really meaningful to me, it makes me a much better mom. I mean, it makes me incredibly more present and available to my kids because I feel like I gave myself something. And so now I have more to give to them, right? I filled myself up, and now I have more to give to them. But it also is setting a powerful example to our children to kind of flip the script here and break um, these habits, I guess, that have been passed down to us, these ways of thinking, that as a mother, you should only be this one thing, right? And you should only have one sole focus, and that's caring for your family. I think this conversation, like you said, might trigger a lot in people, and not everybody's going to agree with us either. But I think it's meant to kind of shake up the conversation a little bit and help us understand that it doesn't have to be uh, the same as it always has been, and you don't have to carry with you the pressure and expectation of all these shoulds and supposed tos. You can start defining for yourself what you want your motherhood journey to look like, what you want it to look like for your children, um, and then, how you want to move forward from this point. That you get to decide that, like Krista said, like this choice, we forget, or maybe we've never even really known that the choice is ours, right? And
Mhm.
it doesn't mean you're neglecting anybody in your life to have this mindset shift. It means that you're actually going to start showing up for your family in a more powerful way, and you're going to set a more powerful example for your children if you give yourself the grace and the space to be really honest about what you want this journey of yours to look like.
Mm. Oh my gosh, so many truth bombs.
Sorry, I feel like I
That
did
was
just
so
unload.
good.
But
That was so good.
one more thing I wanted to say is that, just of my own personal journey, when my kids were really little, because of the nature of my nonprofit, and I traveled a lot, and I still do, but not as much because of the pandemic. But I've traveled really far places and left my babies at home while I did it. And I have carried so much guilt with me in those moments when I do that. It's really challenging and feels incredibly unnatural to leave your babies and go to another country to do something that matters to you. But the perfect example of what I was saying earlier is that the more that I've done that, and now my kids are older, I'm able to have the conversations with them where I say, like, very honestly, like, that was so hard for mommy to leave you and go do what I did. But you know why I did it? Because I was trying to help somebody else. And that is really important. And I was doing something that really mattered to me, and it made me feel good to do it. And that's important. And here I am, still with you, still showing up as mom, and I'm always going to be here. But that the power of that example that you can give your kids to say, yes, you are so important. You are actually more important than anything else in my life. But it's also important that being a mom not be my only focus in life. That
Mhm.
you see my sons and my daughter, this isn't just for the females in our life to see the example, it's for our sons too, to see how important it is for a woman to feel like she can be whole and that she can show up in life as who she really wants to be, as a mom, as a career, whatever her career aspirations are, as a wife, as a friend, as a daughter. Like, we are a whole individual, but we have to start looking at it that way, right? And creating the balance that will allow us to show up as that whole person.
Oh my gosh, I'm chilling up and down. Truth chills. You're so good, and so eloquently said. Oh my gosh. And I just want to flip the perspective a bit when you say that, and I feel this too, of like being a good mom is to give all in to the family life and to the kids. And I want to flip that because if you think about it, when the kids leave, they are going to feel that complete pressure of I was mom's only source of happiness. Now what is she going to do? And that's not fair. That's not fair to our kids. And of course we love them. Of course we want to be there to create safety and trust and have beautiful home life and memories. That's not the conversation we're having. It's about unleashing these other parts of you, these other facets of your being that you loved about yourself before having kids or before having a partner, and getting back to that joy. Like Christy said, we're whole beings. We're whole, complete, and perfect, but we have forgotten those parts after marriage or after relationships or after children. And it's time to reclaim that. It's time to reclaim what you loved to do, how you loved to show up, what you love to wear. Like, treat yourself with exquisite self-care because you deserve it. And imagine how amazing you're going to feel, like Christy said, going to, for me, it's yoga. So it's like going to a yoga class or going to the beach and watching the sunset, or, doing things that I love to do. And then I come home to my family, way different. Like, it's just a completely different energy. Just so much love to give, so much grace that I have pouring through me because I've created that space for myself. I mentioned last podcast about the camping trips that my husband and son go on. And it's like, I've gotten so much feedback from listeners about, this is amazing, goals. It's like, I agree. It is like, it has radically changed so much because not only do I get the time to myself to do whatever I want, but it's also great for my husband and son because my husband gets to see, like, it is a lot of work to be around kids like 24/7 and to have to parent 24/7 and not really sleep well and like worry about all the meals and the snacks and, a lot of the stuff that's invisibly falling on women that he gets to see. And then he has more respect and, understanding for what I do. And then for Damon, it's like we get a chance to miss each other. And that's so beautiful because it really, like, the hugs after he comes back is like incredible. And then we have, these beautiful family moments. So it's creating these peak experiences, not only for your family life, but for you in your individual life. One of the things John Paul and I, we lead the Bringing Baby Home class for new parents. And one of the things we always mention is after we had our son, we both love freedom. So we both are like freedom addicts. And when you have a new baby, freedom is like done. You just don't have, there's no,
Non-existent.
yeah, it's non-existent. You just don't have the spontaneity anymore. You can't be like, hey, let's go out to dinner tonight. No, there needs to be like 10 steps ahead that you have to think about. So we both were struggling in that area. So we said, why don't we give each other one day a week that you're just off? Like, you don't have to worry about the family. You don't have to be home for dinner. You don't have to do bedtime. Like, you can just do you one night a week, and then I'll do me one night a week, and then we'll plan one date night a week. So that just felt so balanced. And that's us. That doesn't work for everybody. It's just what we do that really feels good and feels fresh and balanced because when we first started dating, John Paul would always say, differentiation is key in a relationship. And I, like, growing up codependent, I was like, no, that don't do anything without me. Like, I want to do everything together. I want to have all our memories together. And he really taught me the benefit of, like, when we go away from each other and like he'll go on like a fly fishing trip or he'll go hang out with his guy friends and I'll go with my girlfriends or I'll go to a retreat or I'll go, do something on my own. And then when we come back together, we have new experiences to share with one another. And that creates this beauty, just this beautiful freshness and keeping the learning about each other alive, which, as so many researchers have pointed out, that friendship is what keeps the spark going, and that open communication and the learning about each other. Like, we've been together for 15 years. We're totally different people than when we first met. But do we have our conversations where we stay up all night talking on the phone? No. It's like, hey, how was your day? Good. All right, good. Are you good? Yeah, I'm good. So it's like, we get into that kind of rut where we're not really learning about, like, how was this experience for you, unless it's intentional and focused. So that's the point I wanted to make, was just making sure that when you're giving, knowing that that's not really helping you and it's not really helping them, especially for the long term. Because and this is an internal exercise, but learning what what brings you the most joy, what makes you feel the most alive, because when you come alive, you inspire everyone around you to come alive. And I've witnessed that in my life
Ooh,
completely. So
totally. And there are multiple things you said there that I think were really important to point out. And that the first being that when you brought back up again the camping trips and the fact that you have this time to yourself. I want people listening to hear that, and even if you hear that and it makes you jealous or it makes you feel like that's not fair, I don't get to do
Mhm.
that. Listen to that trigger, right? So Krista saying
Right.
that could trigger you. Listen to that trigger and maybe think of the fact that if you could flip it, instead of being like, that makes me jealous and that makes me feel like sad about the fact that I don't have that, flip it and try to see it as, no, what Krista is showing you is that you have the power to create space for yourself like that, and the
Mhm.
importance of doing that, right? It might not be a whole weekend with your husband away with the kid, which sounds amazing. Um, but it could be, just take the lesson out of that the beauty that comes from creating some time for yourself. And like Krista said, you getting away, even if it's just for a few hours, to go do something, and then you come back and it serves your relationship better because you've all missed each other, and you, while you were away, were able to have this time to fill yourself back up, and then you come back to the situation better because of it. But I think what's lacking for a lot of us is the permission to do that.
You hit the nail on the head. You're right.
We feel like we are not allowed to ask of that for ourselves. I think you do a beautiful job of doing that. And you and John Paul have um, a great way of giving each other that, like you just explained, like the fact that you're being
Mhm.
intentional about alone time and not having so much codependency, and then also being intentional about having your own time together and how valuable that is to your relationship and to your family life, and how that flows over to Damon because you guys are giving that to yourself. All of that, we can listen to that and hear and see the benefit. But what you need to take away most from that is that the permission, you need to give yourself the permission. Nobody outside of you is going to say, you're allowed to do this. I mean, we're telling you that.
Yeah.
Where if you
We
need the
are loud and
permission,
clear
we will write the slip.
for
You
the
want the
people at the back.
all right, we're going to make like a downloadable, printable permission slip for
Yeah.
everyone listening. But the truth is,
Uh-huh.
you have to give yourself the permission first. You have to understand that you are allowed to do stuff for yourself. You
Yeah.
have to do stuff for yourself. And something that came to mind for me as you were saying that, we were talking about it, is, and I may have mentioned this on a different episode, but how I came to see that the difference between when I'm going to put the kids to bed at night and I've had a day where I feel completely like life has been sucked out of me because I have given from the minute I got up to the minute they went to bed. I've given every bit of me to them. I mean, especially during the pandemic. I mean, we were just in this cycle of like, oh
Mhm.
my gosh, like constant mommy, I need, mommy, I want, mommy, can you, mommy, please. And, and then my kids aren't incredibly great at sleeping through the night. So you tack that onto it, like you said, where you're like, now you're like sleepless and
Yeah.
you've been depleted all day long. How I feel when I'm putting them to bed at the end of a day like that, where I have given myself no time for myself at all. Well, then I'm so irritated and I'm so
Mhm.
agitated and I'm so
Mhm.
quick to be like, just go to bed, like,
Yeah.
and lose it. Whereas if I were to take at least just 10 minutes in that day and sit down, put my earbuds in and listen to a guided meditation, do some breathing and just kind of give myself a second. I mean, at the bare minimum. And now, if I were able to go out for an hour or two, even better. Or if I were able to sit at my computer and work on something that was like creative for me, even better. But the difference is at the end of the night when I'm putting them to bed, I'm like, all right, I hope everybody had a great day. Like I am a totally different person, and that's nobody else's fault. The
Yeah.
person
I
that
hear you.
the person that shows up at the end of the night is 100% on me. That's what I've learned.
Mhm.
I have it within my control. So I have to create the time, even if it's only 10 minutes with a guided meditation, or even if it's locking yourself in the bathroom and doing some breathing exercises, because that definitely
Mhm.
happened during the pandemic for me. you know,
Good.
Well, but like,
Yes,
I
good.
know it's easy. It's so much easier to say. And this is coming from a place of someone who has 3 young children. I've been home with my kids full time for the better part of the past 10 years. Um, I know that it's not easy to just carve out this like blissful time for yourself. It sounds amazing, but it's not that easy. But it doesn't mean that you have to say, well, that's just not for me. I'm not allowed to do that. I don't have the luxury of doing that. You can make all these excuses in your head, but all you're doing is reaffirming what you've
Hmm.
been taught, which is you don't deserve this. You're not allowed to. You shouldn't want it, right? You shouldn't want that.
Oh
That's a
yeah, that's a
that's a
big one.
real big one. I shouldn't
Yeah,
want that. I shouldn't want to do anything but
yeah,
be the best mom I could possibly be, which means
yeah.
I should give every single ounce of my soul, time, and energy to my children. And I should never think about what I need or want. That's not what a mother does. That's what we've been
It's
told.
wild. It's ingrained. It really is so ingrained, and it sounds so absurd when you say it,
Right. It
but
does.
it's so ingrained. It's in
Right.
our bones. So it's our job. This is the work. This is the wisdom work of examining the agreements that you're unconsciously continuing in your
Yes.
lineage. Like you have the power to say, what would make me really sad if someone took this away? And what would make me feel really happy if someone took this away? And follow what makes you happy. Permission
Yes.
slip, like ask for people to take other things off your plate that you don't want to do. Do you hate cleaning your house? Hire cleaners if that's available, or ask your partner to help out, or ask your kids to help out. Like there are options where you can say, mommy needs this time. And I love that you said it doesn't matter. It shouldn't need, you shouldn't need to have, well, I shouldn't say that. You don't need a lot of time. Like you said, it can be 10 minutes a day, but it has to be a non-negotiable 10 minutes a day. So one of the things I was just have a story about a mom who's a new mom, she's nursing, and she was telling me about how she was so upset because at their the nursing room at their office is like a janitorial closet or something, which is no surprise. We're getting there, but it's still in the works. And she said someone got really upset with her because she was pumping during, she was supposed to be at a meeting, and or she didn't get back to somebody within the time frame that they thought she should. And she said, I only have 15 minutes to nurse my daughter. Like this is ridiculous. And I told her, those 15 minutes, it doesn't sound long, but if we can put everything else aside and be disciplined in like just limiting all thoughts, all the have tos, all the to-dos, and just be in the presence of whatever we're doing for 10 to 15 minutes, that feels like an eternity.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know if any of you have ever worked out or done like burpees for 15 minutes. Like, that
It is
feels
an eternity.
insane. It is an eternity.
When you're doing
Okay.
burpees, it is an eternity.
Or like, yeah, like any kind of crazy intense exercise. If you told me to do that for 15 minutes, I'd be like, no. But it's like if you wanted to go sit in silence for 15 minutes, like sometimes people will feel like that is too long, like they can't be alone with their mind or whatever. But it's figuring out whatever you can do for 10 to 15 minutes a day that will nourish you. This
Yeah.
is like the highest form of self-care. And this brings into the boundaries conversation too, of creating that sacred space for yourself and saying no to everything else during those times, because
Yeah.
that is what's going to help you stay at your, because the goal, right, is to be a loving presence.
Yeah.
That's every human being's goal, right? We want to create a loving presence within ourselves to give to all of our loved ones. If we don't do the things we need to do for us or that make us feel joy or happy or filled, feel alive, we will be resentful. We will be full with rage, and we're going to be around our kids and our partners with that energy.
Hmm.
So this isn't only for you. This is for everyone in your life that you love. And I love that you
Totally.
talked about the resentment and the jealousy being crumbs towards what you really want. Follow those triggers. For a long time, I would be scrolling on social media being like, oh, she's so good at business, or she's so good at this, and she's so much more ahead. Like, why can't I do that? And I'd be so upset. And I had to learn. And one of the teachers I had, she said, like, resentment is your greatest teacher. Jealousy is your greatest teacher. Whatever you're looking outward and saying, I want that, that means it's an unfulfilled need in you. That's
Yeah.
okay. Thank jealousy, thank resentment, because it's showing you what you truly want. So good.
Yeah.
Get after it.
I was gonna say, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because it actually was the next thing that was like stewing in me to talk about, is showing up for other women. Okay. Showing up for
Mm.
other moms. And instead of being in competition with them as a mom, right? So this plays into the whole conversation about like what we should or supposed to be doing as moms, right? So you've got the stay-at-home moms looking at a working mom and either judging them for like not doing X, Y, and Z that the stay-at-home mom does, or
Mm-hmm.
judging them for or having jealous feelings towards them because, I'll be completely honest, when I'm a stay-at-home mom technically, but I work from home too. I have over the years been incredibly jealous of the fact that those moms get to leave their house every morning and have,
Same,
even if you're
same.
headed to work, you're getting that car ride alone,
Yeah, what a vacation.
is alone. I've been super jealous of that. But then on the flip side, I know that there have been working moms in my life who might be jealous of the fact that I'm with my kids all the time, that I'm there for everything. But
Exactly.
like there's the good and the bad that comes with all of that. And so
Exactly.
I think really paying attention to and honoring the fact that as moms, no matter what your situation is, we all need each other to need each other's support. We need to feel
Mm-hmm.
like, there is no right or wrong, right? Staying home with your kids is not the only way. Being a working mom is not the only way. And let me tell you, staying home and working from home is I'm doing like what you would think would be the happy medium, and it's kind of crazy most days. It's not ideal either, So I just think we have to be very honest with ourselves and compassionate towards other women, compassionate towards ourselves, and just stop adhering to all these supposed tos. Stop
Mm-hmm.
letting yourself be so like it's soul crushing when you
It
hold
is.
on to all of these supposed tos and you give life to those supposed tos. Because here's the thing, the minute you change your mindset around it, you're going to suffocate those supposed tos.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
start to take life away from all the supposed tos. But the more that you focus on it and keep telling yourself that story of a good mom does X, Y, and Z, and a good mom can like make it to all these things and I can't, or a good mom, is supporting her family financially and I can't, or, like there's so many different ways you can look at this, and you'll have a list of supposed tos that you could adhere to. Or
Mm-hmm.
you could choose a different mindset and give yourself a little bit of grace, a little bit of understanding, and remember that we all, as women and mothers, are struggling with that same exact thing. So maybe even just reach out to another mom and have an honest conversation. Reach out to another mom that does something completely different than you in her life and
Mm-hmm.
say, do you want to talk about it? Do you want to just talk about like what it feels like to be navigating your particular role as mom? And let me tell you the struggles that I have. And you're going to see that there's so many more commonalities, no matter how different your circumstances are. And that as moms, we could all use a little extra support in that space
Mm-hmm.
from other women in our lives. And I just wanted to, I guess, put that public service announcement out there that I
I
think
love it.
we really need to start showing up for each other a little bit more and stop silently judging everybody else and silently
Mm-hmm.
judging yourself too.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is no
Oh,
right or wrong. There isn't a right or a wrong. The only
yeah.
right, I would say, is stop listening to all the voices in your head that say there's a supposed to or there's a should, and start getting much more clear on what it is that you can define for yourself is your own authentic journey that you want as a mom.
Exactly. And I love that you're saying all this because we're recording on International Women's Day.
Yay!
No coincidences. So I think that it is so important. Like what you kept saying, what kept coming to me when you're talking was compassion. Like having compassion, because these decisions that we make as women to feel more free and to feel more whole comes with sacrifice, and it comes with a ton of work internally that we've already done in order to make the decisions we've made. So have compassion and cheer each other on, because everyone, whether they're at home, single, married, with kids, without kids, like we have made a lot of choices in our lives, whether it was unconscious or conscious, and it's hard. It's all really difficult and challenging, and it doesn't come without struggle. So recognize that whatever women, when they are happy, when they're living out their bliss and they're feeling alive and they're feeling joy, cheer them on, keep them going, and listen to what happens inside of you. If you're feeling like, oh, I wish I had that, or oh, I'm so happy that she found that, or whatever, like all of that is good information to get more understanding about you and how you're showing up in the world, and how do you want to show up, like how can you make those little shifts inside of yourself to be a little bit more aligned if you're feeling triggered by quote powerful women. We're all powerful, so that's why I put in quotes.
I love
But
that. And
it's
that is,
stepping into it.
yes, and such an important message, like you said, on a day like today, even though our listeners won't be hearing this until later, but today
Yeah.
we're recording on International Women's Day. And that leads me to, I want to mention to the listeners about our upcoming virtual retreat. Christa and I are going to be hosting our second virtual retreat, and it's very much in line with this theme of motherhood, or I'm sorry, of, well, motherhood, but also of being a woman and pouring back into yourself, self-care, taking time, carving out some time for yourself to ask yourself some important questions. That's what these retreats are really about, is Krista and I are just facilitating the space for you to do your own work within that space. So we're taking you through guided meditations, we're taking you through some journaling prompts and other exercises that will help you really get clear on, our theme is release and receive. So last time it was align and allow. This time it's release and receive. So we're going to focus a little more heavily on what are the things that you feel you need to let go of that might be making you feel constricted or might be holding you back from it accessing, either the life that you want to live or the goals or the dreams that you have for yourself. And what we're doing in these questions and the journal prompts is getting you to a much more clear understanding within yourself of what it is that you personally need to release. And then we move into receiving. So how can we move forward and open ourselves up to being more receptive to everything it is that we want to call into our lives? And so I will just say that from the last experience, Krista and I were really excited about the feedback, and even just our own personal experience in the retreat was pretty powerful, because we're doing the work alongside you. But it's really just this like nurturing container that we're creating for 2 hours. It's on a Sunday, May 15th. We'll put some more information out there for you on exact time, but it's basically just a Zoom for 2 hours. You get to say, I've got a call for 2 hours. Sorry, I'm not available.
Sacred space.
You go find a spot to be by yourself, quiet, light some candles, do whatever you need to do to just get in a calm place. Bring your journal and comfy clothes and a nice drink.
We'll take care of the rest.
And we will take care of the rest. So stay tuned for that. Again, it's release and receive, and it's all about, taking some time for yourself.
Oh, I am so excited. That's going to be good.
Yeah, it is. And again, Krista and I are equally as excited to participate as we are to facilitate.
That's right.
So we will put more information out there, but keep an eye out, keep an ear out. It'll be May 15th. Follow us on Instagram at The Wisdom Work for updates on that. Also, feel free, as always, to reach out to us at thewisdomwork@gmail.com with any topic suggestions you have. And I would say, especially today, I want to hear feedback. Today's conversation, I'm asking you to give us your feedback, because I think it's a really important part of this community aspect of what we're trying to create and build upon here, is to hear your opinions. And they don't have to agree, like they don't have to align with what Krista and I are saying, you know?
Yeah.
We want to hear what your opinion is, what your experience is. If what we've said has been helpful, great. And share with us how. If you have your own opinions on this topic and you want to share that too, great. Please just join the conversation.
Yay.
So that's all for today. And we will see you next time on The Wisdom Work with Krista and Christy.